Joan, I'm delighted that you're able to join us today. And I'm going to ask you to identify yourself by your full given name.
My full given name is Joan C. Young.
C, the letter C?
Carol is my
Carol,
name.
okay.
Young, yeah.
All right.
And right now I live in, do you know where I live?
Sure.
I live in Bayshore in a garden apartment for retired people.
Oh.
And I've been there ever since I retired. And it's very perfect. It's close to the parkway and close to everything else, and very happy there.
Terrific. Your middle name,
Carol.
Carol. Now, who in the family or who in your experience was responsible for that?
Well, my mother thought, I was born in December, and my mother thought that my name should be Joan Carol for Christmas. So that's why I'm Joan Carol.
Is it spelled C-A-R-O-L? Okay.
Right. But many people my age have the first name Joan. And for instance, when I was in high school, I had 4 friends that were Joan. Everybody was Joan. In fact, I said to my mother, why? She said, well, that was very popular when you were born, the movie stars and so on, whatever. So I always wished I'd had another name.
Did you use Joan Carol or Joan?
No. My last name was Kelly, so nobody after a while called me Joan anymore. They all called me Kelly.
So that became the nickname.
Yeah, I was glad.
Who was Joan before you? Was there anyone, or was it just a popular name at the time?
My mother thought it was a popular name.
Your family situation right now is that you are, it's you and your brother you mentioned, but your brother is in California, is that right?
Yes, my brother, we're the only ones left. My mother passed away and my father last year, and we had another brother who was also passed away, so we're the only 2 left.
Okay. You have been a single woman for most of your life or all of your life?
Well, I was in a serious automobile accident when I was 25, and my husband was killed.
So you were married. You were married at that time, and he was killed in the accident.
Yeah. Oh, I was in the car.
How tragic! Where did that happen?
In Minnesota. And so
how
then
old were you at the time?
25.
25. Mm-hmm.
So then everyone in the world wanted to fix me up, and I really was not interested. But I eventually was fixed up with one of my friends, ex-boyfriends, and I did marry him, but it didn't last, and I was sorry that I feel like I was talked into it.
Yeah. Okay. So
besides, I like the name Young, so I figured I'd keep that.
Good for you. Now, tell me a little bit about the family contact that you do have at the present time. If your brother is so far away, you must not get a chance to see him all that often.
He comes east about, well, the last time he came, they had a high school, he came from Brentwood High School. He went to Brentwood. He came for a Brentwood High School reunion, and he comes to eat about once a year, and I go out there once or twice a year.
Where in California does he live?
He's in Castroville.
Mm-hmm. And where is that in the state?
It's
Northern, Southern California?
It's near, well, I fly into San Francisco or San Diego. It's right near San Diego, near San Jose.
Okay.
He works in San Jose.
All right. Did you both grow up on the island? And you both grew up in Brentwood, from what I understand.
Yes. I was born in Southside Hospital. I went to elementary school in Brentwood. I went to the firehouse for 1st grade, believe it or not. And then we moved around the corner to the old administration building for 2nd and 3rd grade. Then 4th grade, we went to this big school up here. And we all were so thrilled to have a school. And that was, I stayed there until high school.
Now, let me stop you for a moment. We're talking now about, would this be the 40s?
This would be the late 30s.
The late 30s?
Late 30s and early 40s.
Okay, so at that time, you say you started in the firehouse. There wasn't even a school building?
Well, the big school, the guidance whatever that building was called, where they used to have the administration building, was from second grade on.
Now that was what is now part of the library?
Yes,
Yes.
the front of the library.
Mhm.
So we went there for second grade. So first grade, they put us, there was no kindergarten. They couldn't have kindergarten. So they put us in the firehouse in first grade around the corner.
Wow. Okay. Do you have memories, some of the early memories of that time or those experiences?
I remember.
Describe the inside of the classroom.
The firehouse? It was just a square room.
Okay.
But there was nothing there, and we had to bring everything, books and pencils, and there was nothing there but a teacher,
But
Mrs. Mitchell.
Mrs. Mitchell.
And then when I got left there, I had Florence Kohler, who was also in Brentwood, retired, and Dottie Taylor, who was Dottie Small in the Taylor Lumberyard in the next building. Then when I got to the big school, I had Mrs. Palmer in fourth grade.
When you say the big school, was that the village school?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that was the big school, because the other one was so small.
Yes.
Had like four rooms.
Yes.
And Lee Stewart was the principal.
Okay.
I was scared to death, but
doesn't it amaze you how those names of those early teachers that you had are still with you? You still remember those, the earliest of your teachers.
Oh yes,
That they such a profound effect that these people have.
Oh yes, they did. They really did. In fact, Florence Kohler, when I was in high school, she came over and she said, "I know you're thinking of college." See, she suggested that I go to State University, where she had graduated from, at Brockport. And so she wrote a recommendation for me, and that's why I went to Brockport.
So she had a profound influence on your decision.
She was my second grade teacher, yeah.
Isn't that amazing? What about the childhood memories that you have, Joan, of some of the adults in your life at that time? Of course, you can tell us about your mom, about your dad, but there were other adults that maybe you can tell us about too.
I really, other than the teachers that I loved, I was, that was really, and my grandmother would take me to the city every Saturday, because she thought girls should go to the city, and take me to museums and so forth.
Was this your mother's mother?
Yeah.
Your mother's mother?
Yeah.
What was her name?
Her name was Hose. In fact, he was, now let me see, I had an uncle. He was president of the school board when it was no school board. It was so small. And then my uncle also was President Muller of the school board in Brentwood. But this is when it was very small.
Yeah, well, this would have been in the 30s then you're talking
30s
about.
And 40s, yeah.
Okay.
It was.
So your grandmother had a cultural influence, to say the least, if she brought you into the city every weekend.
Well, she thought girls should go to the city on the train, so I had to go.
That was a long ride.
Yeah. I would really have rather stayed home and played outside, but I had to go to the museum.
Describe your grandmother.
Well, my grandmother always called me her pet grandchild. I think it was because I had so much contact with her, more than the other grandchildren. Not that I was the pet for any other reason, but that was why she'd say, "My pet, we have to go to the city," so we would go.
What were her passions? What did she like to do?
She wanted me to be very interested in the art museum and painting, and I did not wish to paint. I did embroidery, and that satisfied her for a while.
So you knew both your grandparents, I mean, both sets of grandparents.
Yes.
What was your mother's father, who was, you say, active in local board politics?
Yeah.
And what was he like?
Well, he owned a company in Brentwood it was called the Hose Gerard Corporation, and he came out from Brooklyn and was able to have a building for this company. They were jobbers. Now, there's no jobbers today, but he headed this company and had several people working for him. You
must remember Brentwood at a time when, if we're if your memories can take us back to the early 40s, it was a time when Brentwood was extremely rural.
Oh yeah.
There were, tell us about the roads and the winter times and shopping.
Well, the shopping was the railroad station. Now, across from the railroad station was Kohler's general store, and that was certainly nothing like a supermarket, but that was the only store there. I think eventually they opened a luncheonette in that section, but it didn't really go because people just went to the store and they went home. People didn't. There were no malls or anything like that. I mean, that was the store, Kohler's General Market.
This may sound like a silly question, but were there any horses in Brentwood at that time? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Because eventually there became a horse farm up on a
right.
stable.
Well, I lived on Brentwood Parkway, and the horse farm was right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, and I can't think of his name now, but he.
Were there any merchants that used to deliver bakery
Oh,
goods?
yes.
Or they didn't do that by horse-drawn carriages?
No. I can remember the bakery man coming. The Entenmann's, in fact, it was. No, before Entenmann's, it was Dugan's or something, and they would come and deliver. And of course the newspaper. Oh, the milkman. And nobody. I delivered canned goods that I remember, but I do remember.
Did you ever have ice delivered to the house?
Oh, yes.
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 The blocks of ice.
Yes.
Yeah. Before electric refrigerators.
Well, we had ice for other. We had a refrigerator, but we used to have ice, keep an extra things in the back, and my mother would have ice delivered, so we had plenty.
Ah.
I mean, the refrigerators were not that big.
Yes.
And she always wanted to have
an extra supply.
Extra supply in case we couldn't get out, which we couldn't get out.
Joan, do you know anything about either of your parents' family's history? Do you know anything about the Kellys and were they all born in this country? Your grandparents?
Yes, my grandmother and grandfather. My father's father was a policeman, and he was shot in New York, and he was born here, and his mother was born here also, but I don't remember.
When you say he was shot, you mean he was killed?
Yes,
in
my
the
father's
in the line of duty.
Yes, when he was very little, and so that he never. He was brought up by his mother, and he traveled a lot. She moved a lot and had boarding houses and so forth. So he really just went all around.
Yeah. So your connection with or awareness of your father's family history is limited by your contact, pretty much, with them.
Yes.
Was it any different for your mother's family? Do you have any more knowledge of the family on your mother's side?
Not really anything further than my grandmother and grandfather.
Were they all native to Long Island, Joan, or did they?
Yes.
They were.
Mm-hmm.
Aha.
Well, the city.
Okay.
They were born
in New York City.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn, I think.
What did your mother enjoy doing? How do you remember her as a child?
Well, my mother was a tap dance teacher, and she used to teach in the schools. And she had this show, and she used to wanted me to be the biggest star of the world, and I didn't want to, but she'd say, all right now, Joan, and she'd make me tap, and I'd grimace, and she'd say, you have to smile. And I was so unhappy doing this tapping. And when she'd have the show, she'd say, the one that never smiles is my daughter. She doesn't like to tap. But she taught in several schools as the schools came in Brentwood, and she had a tap dancing studio before that, and then she taught for the schools. And she
was she self-taught, or was she herself?
No, she was
trained.
She ran away in high school and went on the stage and became a chorus girl.
Is that right?
Much to my grandparents.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Because
she was a spitfire. She had a mind of her own.
Well, you see, and her closest sister is the one that went into education and was eventually a principal. So Grandma and Grandpa loved her because she was, my mother was going all around the world dancing and, not going to school. and
Yes.
so that they loved their daughter.
Who did you take after?
I don't really know. I didn't want to be in show business, but I loved children. My mother loved children, and I guess that's where the teaching end
Yeah,
came. I
yeah.
always used to
It's-
babysit. and
It sounds
play.
like you have a little bit of both of them in your personality and in your life.
No, not really, but
No, you don't see it that way. I'm thinking
No.
of the education, the degrees that you achieve for yourself, and at the same time, to be a performer every day in front of those little ones, you have to be expressive, and you did a lot of smiling eventually.
Well, I think my children used to laugh so in school because I would say, I am the luckiest one of the whole world. And they'd say, why? And I'd say, because I have 25 children and nobody else does because I didn't have any of my own. Oh, they used to love to hear that.
So you had a fairly small nuclear family. It was your mother, father, and your brother and yourself,
Yeah.
right? What kind of a brother was your brother as you grew up? What were his interests?
Trouble.
Oh, really, huh?
We lived next door to Gene Hoyt, Dr. Hoyt, who was
Yeah.
the superintendent, and his son Stephen and my brother Wayne did everything they could to get into trouble. In fact, they were in, either Stephen was being expelled from school or class, or Wayne was, that we never thought they would go anywhere. And they did.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
made it.
Do you remember one specific incident where they got themselves into a jam?
Well, they were always running, not going to school and running out.
Playing hooky?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were you older than your brother, or was
Yes.
you were the oldest in
Yes.
the family then? Do you think that your birth order had anything to do with the person you became in later life? Do you think being the oldest affected that?
I don't think so. I think that I just always had things I wanted to do, and
Okay.
not because I was the oldest.
How many years separate you and your brother?
10.
10. Okay, so they waited quite a while after having
Yeah,
you before they
yeah.
had your brother. So for a while he was the baby brother
Yeah.
or the kid brother.
Yeah. And then there was another one right away, and they were a year apart. And my mother used to say to me, "Oh, if you just take them for a walk," I used to take them for a walk, just to give her a rest, because
Yeah.
they were so close in age.
And what happened then? Did something happen to your other brother?
Well, my other brother, he was the first boy born. He was Down syndrome,
I see.
and my parents were so upset that the doctor said have another child right away. So Wayne was born within a year.
Okay.
And he's always been the pet because he was the king.
Yes, yes. And what happened to your brother with Down
syndrome? He went to school for a while. He lived till he was about 44.
What was his name?
His name was Edward.
Edward. Uh-huh.
Edward Kelly, yeah. He lived till, I think he was 44.
Lord bless his heart.
And he went to school in Brentwood. They had schools, and then he went to a rehab center, and
and achieved what he could achieve in
Yeah.
the time that he had.
yes.
That's
But it was
great.
always nice because my parents always, when they go away, they take everybody. They take my brother
Yes.
and Wayne, and,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
everybody would always go. So he was never excluded from anything.
Terrific. Yeah.
Oh.
Did he teach you anything? This brother. I'm not talking about Wayne now. I'm talking about your other brother. Did he ever teach? Has he taught you anything in your life? I'm sure you taught him a lot of things.
I tried. I never remember when I was in Brentwood, they called me in the office and they said, "You would be such a wonderful person to teach in our retarded children because, you have a Down syndrome brother."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Please, I have so much patience with him, but I'm not really, and I wish I could remember his name. He was head of in Brentwood. I can't think of it.
Howard Brodsky, is that who you're thinking of?
No. Yes, it was Brodsky.
Yeah.
And he said, you would be so perfect. And I just didn't ever want to I spent so much time with him alone at home that I didn't want to get involved full time every day with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How are there any words, Joan, you could use to describe family life growing up in Brentwood? Any adjectives that you could use to describe your family life?
Very rural.
Mm-hmm. Do you have chores to do? Were there things you were responsible for doing?
Oh, yes. The house, taking care of the house and things, my room. And
okay.
I think that as I grew up and had to go to Bayshore High School, it was so hard because then all the kids didn't have cars and we had to take the bus home. They'd give us passes on the bus from Bayshore. And they didn't particularly like, the bus drivers didn't particularly like the kids, which I can understand, on the bus. That was a regular commercial bus, and they had to let us on because we had the passes.
Sure.
And so it was always difficult getting back and forth when I was in high school because, I had to take the bus after school, and they didn't like us on the bus.
Because kids will be kids, right?
Yeah, right. And I can understand it now. Then I couldn't. But they were in business, and here we're disrupting the passengers that are paying, and we have to get on with this piece of paper.
At this time, was this like a municipal bus, or was this a private bus company that ran that service?
It was a private bus company, but they also, it was Suffolk Transportation. I think we would go to the office and get a slip to get on the municipal bus. No.
So outside of your family, your nuclear family, and your teachers, is it fair to say that there weren't any other adult influences that had a formative effect? Were there neighbors? Were there contacts, friends of your parents that?
Well, my uncle lived next door. He was a judge at one time on Long Island. He was the controller of Long Island.
What was his name?
Fred Hose.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a daughter my age, and the two of us, he used to spend a lot of time with us and encourage us to do things other than read the Bobbsey Twins or whatever. Yes, I think my uncle had a lot of influence on.
You just provoked a memory. The Bobbsey Twins. Were you a reader?
Oh, I read every Bobbsey Twin book or Nancy Drew and all.
Yeah.
Well,
kids have gotten away from that, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
Although there are new kinds of series of books. The Harry Potter series of books is very big today.
Mm-hmm.
That seem to be attracting kids, another generation.
But you see, we didn't have the television at that time. And when television first came, I can remember we had television, and there'd be a fight. We'd have like 30 people. All the neighbors come because we were so wealthy. We had a television, but it was about a 6x6, and everyone would come and they'd put
sit on the floor and sit.
Yeah.
Okay, and watch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Howdy Doody and and let's see what else. Houdini and the Lucky Pup. I guess that was the name of that.
Well, it seems to me my parents had company mostly when there's a fight. That's
to watch the wrestling you're talking about, or
no, the boxing.
Oh, boxing.
Boxing. Yeah, I remember.
Okay. Who was the fan of boxing? Was your father the fan?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he enjoyed
it.
My mother certainly did.
Joan, that was the golden age of television. So if there are memories like Milton Berle and all the rest,
Milton Berle,
that you didn't go out on those nights when those shows were on. Everybody was there. Now, who was it, as far as you're concerned, that is most responsible for your career choice eventually? Is there one person, or was there one circumstance that led to your decision to pursue education as a career?
Well, I think I said before, Florence Kohler. um, had such an influence on me
You
that I
did,
think
yes.
she was the one that I would say really encouraged me
Uh-huh.
because I did love children, and she encouraged me to go on.
Okay. Now, do you have any contact, or is there any contact with any of your school chums? Do you still have connections with any of your either elementary or high school friends
Last
or
year,
college friends?
college, of course, but last year we had a big 50th um, graduation, and everybody from my class went up and got a diploma, and then we went to Southwood Ho after and had which is a very, very nice
Yes.
place, and had a big dinner. And they do this every year at Bayshore High School. Every year they have the graduates of 50 years come back and get
Do they?
yeah, diplomas. And
Now, that would have, if they do that every year, then you're talking about graduates of Brentwood, because there was no Brentwood High School in those days.
that's
was there?
right. Yeah.
I guess the Ross building probably was the first high school, and it opened up, was it 57 or 58 when it was first? I'm
Yeah.
not sure of the dates
No,
there.
not either.
That was before either you or I came to Brentwood that it opened up. But prior to that, they were graduating as you did from Bayshore.
Yes. And then right.
Where was your home in Brentwood in those days?
On the Brentwood Parkway, my grandfather had 5 children, and he gave each child a piece of property, and every child had a house on the Parkway, and so that all 5 children lived right near him.
Oh.
And that was.
Are those homes are all, those houses are still there? Are
They're all there, and they're all sold except for our house.
Uh-huh. Yes.
That's the only one that isn't sold. And we do have some people living there now that might buy it. We're not sure whether in the beginning, when we want to sell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Joan, what was your very first paying job?
In high school?
Well, any job that
Well,
you got money for. Not I'm talking about where you volunteered or you babysat and it was just
Right.
as a family favor. I'm talking about somebody that paid you for your services.
I worked in Freistat's in Bayshore, which was a drugstore. And everybody would come from all over to get ice cream. It was so tremendous. And they had a very big lunch business. And that was, I was very, very happy because to me then the tips were very good. In fact, Sidney Seiben, the lawyer from Bayshore, would come in for lunch and he would say, "Kelly, you know what I want it ready." So I'd have it ready and I'd run over and he'd give me $1. Oh my God, what a tip that was for a lunch.
Oh.
But I always had his lunch ready, so that I enjoyed working in Freistat's. That was
Was that kind of a local sweet shop or hangout for kids?
There was a drugstore in Bayshore that had ice cream and food, and it was the only one other than Addicts, the ice cream parlor. So everybody would come down there for lunch and drugs and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It is not there any longer.
Is that someplace where the teenagers would also congregate?
No, the teenagers would go to Addicts, the ice cream store.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Teenagers didn't congregate so much in Freistat's.
Okay. What was a family holiday that you particularly enjoyed?
Well, I think Thanksgiving was my favorite because everybody would come to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and all 5 of my mother's brothers and sisters, well, she had 4, she was 5, and all their children. So I'd see my cousins, and that was a big treat.
Joan, where are all the cousins today? Where have they all spread out?
They've all spread out. I'm the only, no, there's one other cousin in Oakdale. Only the 2 of us are on Long Island. Everyone else is
moved away, huh?
Moved away.
Okay. Describe yourself for us now as a kid. What kind of a kid were you? What were your interests? What did you like to do besides reading? Because we know you were a reader.
Yeah. Well,
You're laughing.
I'm laughing because I'm embarrassed if anybody ever sees this, and I'm afraid somebody will, but they called me Bony Joni with the ants in her pants because I used to jump around and I didn't, if I wasn't sitting still reading, I was always climbing trees or I wanted to play something or move. I never wanted to sit and just.
You were an active little kid.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what you
so
were.
that was my name.
Yeah, okay.
I-
Kids can be cruel sometimes.
Oh, I used
But you've seen examples of that. You've probably experienced it in your life.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, if you've experienced it, it prepared you to be a very compassionate influence for those instances where you saw later on kids being cruel to one another.
Yes. I think, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about teaching.
Sure it is.
But, and I really can't go into details other than I was teaching kindergarten in Pine Park, and I had a little black boy, and both parents worked. Nobody was ever home. He used to come to school without a bath and so forth. And he was not interested in schoolwork at all. And I said, one day I said, do you know you'd make me very happy? I said, you would make me so happy if you would just try to print that name. This is when we taught printing. They don't do that anymore. He says, I don't want to. And I said, why? And he said, because you are a teacher. And all the kids, they never heard this terrible word before, so I don't know. I mean, I've got all these kids in the room. So I went over and I rang the buzzer. I said, send the psychologist. So they came down. I said, all I wanted to do was a favor. And I said, I don't know what, I had to call you because all the kids were going to go home and tell what he said. And so he said, well, I'll talk to him. So he took him. So we're having music or something. And all of a sudden, he said, I hear, I'm glad to go back to that room because you are a man. Oh.
So he gave it to him too.
Anyway, no, to make the long story short, yes. He was expelled. And I felt terrible because I knew he had about the family life. And when he came back to school after 3 days, he had bruises. And so I naturally had to, take him to the nurse. But he did not, the psychologist told me he didn't know what he was saying. He just heard this so much at home, yelling the mother and father, that he just thought that was something to say. And I never forgot that child. And about 10 years later, I was in Brentwood and he came out. All of a sudden, I got this big hug. And I said, how are you? And I said, I've thought about you so much. He said, if you only knew. He said, I've thought about you. And he said, I wanted to come. But he said, we moved away. Oh, no, he was transferred, or his father was transferred. But he finally wanted to come back. And he said, I must tell you that was one of the happiest school years of my life in your room. And here I felt like the poor kid. I mean, he was expelled and everything else. He said, because you really liked me, and I knew it, and I just never forgot that.
This is when you know that you've done what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
This is payday. That's what that is. I can look at your face as I ask questions, and sometimes you hesitate, and I can see that your mind is racing through an experience or through a memory. That I'm very glad you shared that one with us in particular, because I think that says so much about what the job of a teacher is, to express that kind of caring and compassion, which you clearly had some experiences of your own in your own childhood of being at the other end of put downs or of kids' cruelty to one another. They don't know any better. But you probably have seen a lot of examples of the sad examples of kids who come to you after coming from a home where they're not receiving the kind of nourishment that kids are entitled to.
Well, it really is very sad because many of the children, the parents had to work to survive.
Yes.
they weren't bringing in 2 salaries to live on Easy Street.
Right.
They were working to put food on the
Struggling,
table.
yeah.
And this is the sad part. It's not their fault. Their parents are trying to do something.
That's right.
Now I've been retired, and I don't know if it's still as difficult, but it was very hard to get a class mother. They would love to help, but they were all working, or they
Yes.
were babysitting for.
Yes.
They couldn't come up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very, very hard.
Joan, are you a morning person? You described earlier that you used to get to school very early in the morning. Are you still that way?
Yes, I'm still.
You're not a night person. You're a morning person,
I'm a
aren't
morning
you?
person. Yeah.
Tell us about your coming to school.
Well, I used to get to school. I loved. I mean, I love to be social, but I like to get to school and do everything before anybody got there. So I used to get there sometimes before school, before it even opened. In fact, eventually I had to. Herb gave me a key to the school because I couldn't get in to do my work, and I used to leave it back and forth. But everyone in school used to kid me and say, "Well, we know." They thought I was having an affair with the janitor, and if they'd just come in down my room, I was working like crazy down there, trying to get everything set up. Because when people come to school, they like to have coffee, and you can't say, "Oh, I've got to do my work now." So I always wanted to have everything done.
Did Hollywood get it right when Arnold Schwarzenegger played the part of a kindergarten teacher? Remember? Did you ever see that movie?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring that up is that I think one of the hardest jobs that any teacher can have is to have 30 kindergartners in their charge for a full day. You had to have every moment planned, programmed to
That's
keep
right,
them busy.
Yeah.
Even the nap time. It was
Nap time. We couldn't have nap time. We had to do things. There were things that the superintendent wanted done in that kindergarten, and we couldn't have nap time. Rest time for 5 minutes maybe, but no nap time.
Okay.
I think it was when it was 2 sessions. Kindergarten was 2 sessions. You did have a break in between, so that you could catch your breath, eat your lunch, but when it was full day, there was no. Well, eventually they did have music and art and things like that, but in the beginning we were full day, and it was hard then. Now everyone goes to daycare, but then not everybody went to daycare.
What about those schools that don't believe in kindergarten or don't have kindergarten? Do you think that they're missing something? Do you think that kids miss something by not having that year?
Well, I think right now the way the kindergarten curriculum is set up, they are reading before first grade, and they could not go into first grade unless they could teach themselves to read. But
so what you're saying is that the curriculum has invaded kindergarten as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's not just a socialization process.
No. And I do think that they do need some time to play, but it's almost impossible
to find it. Yeah.
To find the time.
This is another subject in another direction, but do you have a favorite season in the year? Are you you obviously enjoy the seasons because you're still living here in Brentwood,
Yes.
where we have 4 seasons.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite?
I like the summer.
Mhm.
I enjoy the beach, but I would not want to live in Florida year. I mean, I know people love it, but a couple of weeks down there, and I do see people that I know down there.
Yeah.
I usually go to Florida a couple times a year.
Nice place to visit.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But a lot of people from Long Island.
Absolutely. And from Brentwood.
And from Brentwood are down there.
That's right.
And they're very happy.
As a child, as a little girl, did you have a favorite toy or favorite toys, things that you had an affinity to play with? And I just threw that one.
I love to roller skate.
You did?
Yeah.
There's very little. Where did you roller skate in Brentwood? The streets weren't all that good to roller skate on.
No, but eventually they did have sidewalks.
Okay.
And I'd always roller skate out there.
All right. Do you have certain aromas that will bring you back to those early years? That you'll get a whiff of something and suddenly you find yourself transported back to when you were 8 years old or 7 years old. Are there any aromas that do that for you?
Not really that I can
Okay.
think of.
Well, the first full day school you attended, you said was, if I'm not mistaken, in the firehouse.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you moved to what was it, a 4-room schoolhouse?
The administration
building. And after that, you went to Village, right? Do you remember do you have a specific memory of your first day at school? When
At the firehouse?
Yeah, when Mom dropped you off and left you there, do you remember anything that happened that day?
I didn't think I was going to like this because it was, my grandmother had worked with me a lot and read, and I didn't think I was going to like the work because I was pretty well prepared, and I thought I would be very bored with this. In fact, after about 2 weeks, the teacher called my mother and said, "Would you please send Joan with her embroidery because she's very bored and I can't see those times I can't keep her busy." So my mother let me have my embroidery in first grade because I was bored with.
Yeah.
My grandmother had helped me a lot. And
you were already there.
I was
there,
there.
Done that, and yeah.
So that was the only remember going in with my embroidery.
Oh, that's neat. Did you have in school favorite subjects then, or least favorite subjects?
Well, all I wanted to do was read.
Really?
Yeah, that was my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And
you must have loved your English classes then.
Oh yeah.
Did you take a foreign language at any time?
I took Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now tell us about take us along to the schools that you attended, and from the firehouse, and then you went to the administration building, which
Right.
was the 4-room schoolhouse. Then you
Right.
went to the Village, and following that, then take us up through your graduate school.
Then I went to Bayshore High School,
Mm-hmm.
and after Bayshore High School, as I said, Florence had helped me. I
Mhm.
went to State University, New York,
At Brockport.
and after that, I wanted to come back to the island and teach, and Dr. Hoyt had offered me a job in Brentwood, but I wanted to start somewhere else, not have teachers that had me. So I taught in Half Hollow Hills 3 years, 4th grade, tenure. And then I think I mentioned my husband was killed in an accident.
Did.
My husband
This
was
was
in
when
the,
you were in your 20s.
Yeah, my husband was in the Army in Europe. So I went over to Europe and I taught in the Army Dependent School for a year. He was over there at that time on TDY, which is temporary duty. He was a coach. And when I came back from Germany, I went back to Half Hollow Hills for a year. And then the accident came, and after that, I was offered a job at my college where I had been, State University. So I went up there and taught for a year.
Now, this is in the 50s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came, I was up there for 2 years. I did graduate work up there at the University of Rochester, and I also took a summer off and went to the University of Hawaii, which was some great summer.
Oh, I'll bet.
And and it's interesting because it's so expensive to take courses at Columbia from just regular courses. But in Hawaii, all the Columbia teachers and professors go there. You can have them for like $10 an hour. In other words, it's like it's hard to believe how incredible and how inexpensive it is in Hawaii.
It was very cost effective to do it that way.
Anyway,
I get Hawaii besides.
Yeah, and take surfing.
Did you do that?
Yes, because
Did you?
you see, the graduate students were put up in Waikiki. We didn't have to live on the through the NEA. We didn't live at the college because we were graduates. So they put us up in.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was a wonderful, wonderful summer. But then
You at that point deserved that, though. You needed to give yourself that break. I mean,
Well,
it sounds.
I just wanted to do something different.
Yes, yes.
And since I had to do some more graduate work to stay working at the college level, I thought it would be the best place in the world to take it. I didn't want to come to Columbia.
But at some point now, at the college where you were teaching, they came to you and said, what?
They said, "We're very happy with your work, Joan, when you're doing a wonderful job for the student teachers and in education. But if you want to stay at the college level, you're never going to move salary-wise or any-wise unless you get your PhD or your doctorate."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Dr. Tower, the president," I said, I have my BS, my MS, and I have 45 hours beyond, and that is not my cup of tea."
Mm-hmm.
So that was when I left, because it was ridiculous. I could come back to Long Island and make more money than I was making up there.
And you knocked on Dr. Hoyt's door.
And I said, "I'm ready." And I said, "Gene, I have one request." I said, "I would like to teach in Brentwood. I love the system. I feel ready now, but please don't put me in my aunt's school," because my aunt was a principal. He said he would not do that. He wouldn't do that.
And your aunt was?
Dot Grimm.
Okay.
I did not want to work.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's just.
Under her.
Yeah.
Right.
As it turned out, I worked under Herb Fishman, and I taught with him, but it was a different situation.
So you actually then, once you did get the job and you started teaching in Brentwood, you worked in a number of buildings under a number of principals. What were the buildings that you worked in? You started?
I started with, took the place of a pregnant girl at Ralph Sakin's school.
Okay.
In North, and then she came back, and the next year I went to Southwest.
Okay.
And I taught for Frank Hall for 3-4 years. And then I decided to take a change and see what Herb had. I had taught with Herb, and Herb had a kindergarten. So I tried kindergarten, and I stayed and retired from Pine Park.
The interesting thing is you made these switches from building to building and principal to principal at a time that the population of Brentwood was growing exponentially.
Right. And you could do that then, I mean.
And every year another school was opening up.
That's
and
right.
They needed staff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like later on when you couldn't
Yes.
go from school to school, so to speak.
Yeah.
I was in the right place at the right time. I mean, I'm not that wonderful teaching-wise, but I was always in the right place, and I was lucky.
Well, one of the questions I will ask people as a rule is to describe their interview. Your interview sounded like it pretty much had already taken place years ago because you'd been offered the job in Brentwood
yes,
already.
when I first graduated
So
from
the
college.
moment you said, "I'm ready," that was it.
Yeah.
Was there any other interview involved in the process, or was that all it took to
No,
sign
I
a
went
contract?
up to Dr. Hoyt's
Mhm.
office, and I said, "Now I
Mhm.
would like to teach in Brentwood." He said, "Well, we're very happy to have you."
Okay.
And
And let's see, Jerry Smith was here then.
yes, Dr.
who-
Brieger.
Dr. Brieger was, okay. Mm-hmm. Something we got talking about a little bit before and we got away from it, I would like to come back. Talking about the curriculum working its way down even to the kindergarten with respect to writing and printing and script. You were telling us about some of the I guess the tricks or the memory tricks that you had used to teach letters.
Well, I was always trying to think of a story or something to go with a letter or a number, and so that they would remember, so the children would remember. And like I start with starting with the numbers, I'd say a straight line 1 is fun, and I do it in the air. And then they'd say a straight copy.
Right.
Straight line 1 is fun, and like I'd have them put a tree in the middle of the paper and go around and around a tree. That's 3, and they would remember as they.
Yes.
Oh, they used to like 4 because I'd say down and over and down some more. That's how you make a 4. They love that.
Yes. Yes.
Or they also liked, better than that, they liked Fat Old 5 because Fat Old 5 had to have a hat on to cover his big fat stomach. So Fat Old 5 was a straight man with a big fat stomach, and to cover that stomach, he had to have a hat on. They love that.
As long as it's politically correct, I'll bet you could have written for Sesame Street with some of that.
Not really.
Or the Children's Television Playhouse or whatever workshop, because a lot of that kind of technique was very prevalent in early television of that kind. So you were right at the cutting edge with some of that thinking. But they don't teach, or they didn't teach writing after a while.
No, they don't. Now that they do not teach printing, they start off with cursive writing in kindergarten because I've talked to people that are still there, and I think it was hard enough for the fine coordination to get them to make big numbers, and now they say it's very difficult, but they go right into teaching writing.
I had commented to you before we began the interview that for about 10 years of the last years that I taught, I ceased to see students at the high school who knew how to write in script. They just printed, and you were explaining that
it's not in the curriculum.
It wasn't in the curriculum.
No. Well, there are too many things that they want done that you can't fit that in. I mean,
the demands became too great.
That's right.
So something had to go.
Right, yeah. And they wanted the children walking out of kindergarten reading, and that was far more important than.
Let's go back to some of those early years, Joan. When you began teaching in Brentwood, your first year, how much did you make here?
My first year. Well, I know when I started in Half Hollow Hills, it was $3,000, and I thought that was more money than anything, because the ones upstate were making $22,000. Then when I first came to Brentwood, I think it was $6,200 or $400.
Okay.
$6,000.
Now, when you began teaching in Half Hollow Hills, would that have been around 1960 or 60?
No, that was 60, 49. 53. It was 54.
Okay, it's in the mid 50s that you were in Half Hollow Hills.
Right.
So you didn't begin in Brentwood until 62. You said.
Right. I taught in Half Hollow Hills.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were some of the impressions once you began to meet people that you were working with? The social connections, the collegial connections you made here. What were some of the first impressions you had of the district? Did you think you made the right choice?
Oh, I was very happy. I was very, very happy in Brentwood. I think because I had gone to school here, I enjoyed it even more.
Because you still knew a lot of people.
I still knew a lot of people, and I knew what they were talking about. I knew the area.
Tell me about the time that you were introduced by Dr. Hoyt.
Oh, I'd rather not. It was the first day of school. And Dr. Hoyt said, I'm so happy to say to everyone that we have someone coming into our system this year who was born in Bayshore and was a resident of Brentwood, born in Bayshore Heights in Southside Hospital. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, he must be talking about me. And then he introduced me. And after the meeting was over, people came up to me and they looked at me like I had some kind of a disease or something, that I would be born in Southside Hospital and go to school in Brentwood. Oh, he also mentioned go to school in Brentwood, because they were all from New England and they were coming down. They couldn't imagine anybody that would be still here.
Been here and chosen to stay here.
And then I wanted to teach here. They thought, boy, something must be wrong with her.
But I can't believe that they thought that. That had to had to be your take on things at that point. But nevertheless, it does single you out as being unique, because how many people do you know are still in Brentwood that grew up here, that went to school here, that taught here, and are still here? I dare say people have moved to the four corners of the planet.
Right, that's true. I had a friend that I saw from his mother and father were doctors at the hospital. We went to high school together, and I saw him at the reunion last year. And he said, the high school, he said, "Who is left?" I said, "No one."
Yeah.
He said, "Who is left in Brentwood?" I said,
Yeah.
"No one. Everyone has gone away."
Yeah.
There's no one that I know of that lives there that we went to school with. I am still friendly with a girl that I was friendly with in Brentwood, but she has moved on away to Florida, and but we're still friends from
Yes.
my grade school.
Yes.
But she, of course, doesn't live here. But
Right.
Chris said to me, "Who is there?" And I said, "No one."
You see, you are unique.
Well, I think now
Yes.
there are more people in Brentwood that have gone to school and have come back
Yes.
and they're
Yes.
teaching here now.
Yes.
But at that time, I guess.
Mention some of the names, Joan, of people who you've worked with, because I know we know so many of the same people. But in your first couple of years, and then as you moved from building to building, you got to know a lot of people. Some of them real characters, by the way. But
Yeah.
you got to know quite a few people.
I taught Forsaken,
Mhm.
Frank Hall, Herb Fishman, and Harvey Brickman. Those were the four people I taught for in Brentwood. I think it's funny. I think when I taught for Ralph Sakin, he was a favorite principal. Well, there weren't that many. I mean, everybody loved to talk, and I loved working for Ralph. He was very, very popular with the teachers. Then Frank Hall, he was also. I mean, it would just seem that I was fortunate.
You loved teaching, though, didn't you?
Oh, I did. I really did.
So even though there were things about it that all of us didn't like, for the most part, you loved coming to work and you loved preparing for the kids and being with them.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Did you let's see what I was going to ask you several of the things that happened while we were both here. For example, there were events that occurred that we will probably remember for the rest of our lives, where we were and what we were doing. For example, when we got news of the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, yeah.
You were teaching at that point?
Southwest. It was.
I can see memories flying in front of your.
Yes, because I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to talk to the children. They were frantic. What's happening to our world? And I really felt that I didn't know how to handle this. That there would be a person so cruel, a second grade. I mean, there'd be a person so cruel that they would kill the president.
Yes.
They were very it was very difficult for me and for the children. It was a very scary time.
Yeah. There have been a number of events that had that kind of a traumatic impact on us as we were teaching, but there were also some uplifting times. I'm sure there were events and programs that you were involved in that gave you a high that you can remember to this day too. Besides being the classroom teacher that you were in various grade levels, it was not just kindergarten, but it was
second,
fourth.
And I taught everything in Europe. I was a permanent sub.
Was there other activities that you got involved with working with students outside of the classroom? Or was your involvement pretty much confined to your work with students in class?
I really think that it was mostly in.
Did you have a favorite year? Favorite group?
Yes.
What was that?
Well, it was a kindergarten group in Pine Park, and I was working with one of the other teachers, and we put on a show. And of course, we had 2 sessions at that time, so we had to have 2 shows. And I will never forget that was the most exciting thing for the children to be in both classes. And they televised it. In fact, they came in with the television, and that was a highlight of my experience at Pine Park.
What year would that have been?
That was
in the 70s? Would it have been
Yeah.
in the 70s? Okay. You also mentioned your last year was one of your. You had a great last year.
My great last year was great, because before that, many times when we were on austerity, we didn't have any paper, we didn't have any pencils, and I always saved things in the closet, so I would have something if we couldn't get any materials. And it was always, well, we could only make one of something, because I always wanted to make sure I had enough for the next year. And the last year, I was so relaxed because I didn't have to save anything. Or any of the materials. They could do whatever they want, make as many as they wanted. If they wanted to make 4 Mother's Day presents, they could. It was so relaxing that I think if you had, and I didn't spend that much money the last year. I mean, it wasn't that ridiculous. If you were just allowed, and now I don't know what it is today, but to have the supplies that you needed, that you could be comfortable with, it would make it so much easier.
But you raise an important issue. You used to spend a lot of money out of your own pocket.
Oh, yeah. Every year I did. Every year I used to go before school to Weens and get a lot of things that I knew I wouldn't have. But I'm not the only one. I used to go with my friends. We were very good customers.
Yeah.
But
that's what you do, because you know it's going to make your job easier in the long run. And
right, and it makes your room more attractive,
right.
You just don't have the money to do what.
I remember reading someplace that the average grade school teacher spends as much as $400 and $500 a year out of pocket for expenses, and it doesn't. Today it doesn't seem unreasonable to expect that that's what teachers do.
Oh, well,
even with the economies moving as they have over the years. Joan, you had a job description, you had a contract, but you also had a reason for coming to work every day. You had a purpose in being in that room with those youngsters. Have you ever thought about what your purpose was, or how you defined your mission in the classroom?
I think that I felt that if I could give them the feeling that they instill in the children, that the feeling that they wanted to come to school every day and learn, and they just wanted to come, I was fulfilling my job. If granted, sometimes they might during their school years have teachers they didn't particularly get along with, but if they had that feeling, that wasn't going to die. That was going to continue, that they wanted to go, they wanted to come. And
very often, if they have it just with one teacher, and if you could be that teacher, you could accomplish that, couldn't you?
I felt that if I gave them a good start, especially when I got to kindergarten, when I gave them a good start, that was my goal.
That was your goal.
To learn to love school, to love to come, and they didn't have to love to work. They just had to love to come and see them.
Just to be there.
Just to be there. Yeah.
Have you had contact over the years with any of your former students?
Several of my students, I've gone to a couple of weddings.
Have you?
And I've gotten Christmas cards from a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the weddings, I think, were the most fun because, I went to 2 weddings last year in Bayshore. One, and they're so excited to be getting married.
Yes.
And
yes.
Did
you ever write a letter or a note or make a phone call to one of your former teachers? Did you ever, once you got out of school, was there ever any reason for you to contact one of your teachers? I'm just wondering if it ran both ways because
well,
your
I think
teacher.
that the only time I ever, yes, I mean, this is a funny story, but I remember Bayshore High School had a principal, and I was friendly with his daughter. We were together, and I called him when I was in college, and asked him if we could have a bridge game, and he said certainly. And I went over to, this is my high school and his daughter, and we so I did contact him.
Okay.
Well, I guess that would be going to the top, but I was friendly with his daughter. I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I told you I was going to be asking you these questions about your affiliation with the organization. You were a member of the teaching staff before there was a union in Brentwood.
Correct.
Were you a member of the Brentwood Teachers Association right from the beginning of your employment here?
Yes.
Did you ever, Joan, get involved in the political struggles of the union or of the organization? Did you become active on a building level at any point?
No, I didn't. A couple of years I was a representative, but I didn't.
You were a building rep?
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
I find that for some people, and no doubt you are one of them, your involvement was so consuming in the classroom that there was very little time for anything else.
Well,
Was that fair to say?
I think that I felt that everybody had their job, and that
Yes.
that was not my job.
That
it was
was
the
not
men.
your job.
The
Okay.
men could do that in the school, and I gave them something to do, and they were not as involved as we were. But I always kind of voted for a man for.
Okay, you raise an issue that I think bears comment. The last 30 years have seen a lot of changes as far as not just women's rights, but the civil rights movement in this country. And we were working in this district at a time when a lot of those changes took place. Women's employment, the employment of minority members in the district. And I'm wondering if you ever felt on the receiving end of some unfair treatment at any point along the line as the country was going through these changes.
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
All right. Okay. Do you think that the role of the union is any different today than it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago? Do you think the definition or the role of a professional member of NYSID or of the BTA has changed at all?
Well, I think it has changed as the times have changed. It has got to. It couldn't stay the same as it was. I mean, it's got to move on with.
There's a time, I mean, people used to describe us as being a huge family, that there was a closeness among administrators and teachers, and then there were those who described the breakdown, that there became the administrative camp, and then there was the teacher camp, and I wonder, what you're saying is things have to change. There's even in negotiations, they change the way they maybe were at one time. Brentwood has been fortunate. We've always missed having strikes. We came close, but we never had a strike. And there's always been a working relationship between administration and the teaching staff, and even the community has been very supportive of education. You ever have any experience with those years when there was, you mentioned austerity. You mentioned many times the budget was defeated, and we had any memories associated with any of those?
I used to feel sorry for the children because there were of all things, the buses. There were no buses, and
Yes.
the parents would bring them, and somebody
Yes.
couldn't bring them, and then the weather was bad, and they had to walk sometimes with their
Mhm.
parents, and they didn't particularly want to walk, but they had, the parents couldn't get them there any other way, and it was just very hard for the children.
Yeah.
And as far as our supplies, we weren't supposed to have any. I used to get away with it because I bought my own, and if they said anything to me, but I could say, "Well, I'm sorry." I could show them the bills.
That's right. Right.
So that where I think that it was very hard.
You do what you have to do, and you
That's
did
right.
what you had to do to get through those years, to get through those times.
Right.
But at a certain point, you decided it was time to do something else. And that came around 1987, I think you said.
Yeah.
And that's when you decided to retire. Why?
Well, I went to the state man, and I said that they offered me an incentive, and I really thought maybe I would stay a little longer, but maybe I needed a rest. And he said, financially, you might as well get out now, take the incentive, because another 2 years is not going to make that much difference financially.
How old were you at the time that you decided to retire?
52. It was 3 years early.
Oh, was it?
55.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so
they gave you 3 years credit?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they gave me the incentive.
Yes.
And then they put me, he said, really, financially, it isn't going to make that much difference. I didn't care financially. I just, I was just thought, well, if I don't take the incentive now, maybe they won't offer it in 2 years.
Joan, would it be fair to say that you're tired at that point?
Oh, I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to admit, I didn't think I was ready, but I really was, but didn't know it.
But you still loved what you were doing.
I did.
But there was something that told you now is the time.
Yeah.
And I wondered if it was just that you were tired, or if there were it wasn't a health issue at that time, was it? That was.
No, it wasn't. No, I was just. I was just.
Go ahead.
Tired.
Okay. All right.
And I did not have the energy that I used. That's what I think I missed. I didn't have that energy that I had. And all of a sudden I said, "What's the matter with me? Why am I losing?"
I used to be able to do this.
Yeah, I used to be able to, be at school 7 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't. I didn't want. It was a chore.
It was a chore.
That's what.
Okay.
And I didn't want it
Yes.
to be a chore to get there early, because I love teaching, and I didn't.
What, of all your professional accomplishments, is there one thing that you can say you are most proud of?
Well, this isn't an accomplishment, but I was very fortunate as an undergraduate, and my parents did not have the money then to put me through school, so I was able to, on my own. Well, my grandmother helped a little, but I put myself through college, by working in the canning factory, and then I graduated from the canning factory. I worked in a restaurant, and then I graduated from there and worked in the bookstore, and then I worked in the registrar's office. So I think that was the biggest thing in my life, is that I was able to put myself through school on my own.
That is no small accomplishment, and it was not there.
It couldn't be done today, but at that time I
No.
was able to do it.
Yes. Yes.
You
Oh,
couldn't.
that certainly is a reason to be proud. Is there anything that you would like to have seen accomplished by the time that you retired? Because we all come into the profession with dreams. We come in with an ideal, something that we hope to see by the time we leave. Was there something that you would like to have seen accomplished that was left unfinished? Or did you do what you came to do?
I don't think I questioned.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did the best job I could, and I really.
So there was nothing left undone. You did what you came to do.
I think I did. I tried.
That's terrific. Yeah.
Um,
Now, the total number of years that you put into public education was?
well, I was 25 in Brentwood,
Okay.
and I taught 5 in Heffall Hills, and a year in Germany.
Okay.
And the year at the college level, I was supervising teachers. I wasn't.
So it's
teaching.
between 25 and 30, a little bit short of
Yeah,
30 years that you were totally.
Mm-hmm.
What have you been doing since you retired? You've had plenty of practice now, so
Yeah.
I think it's fair to ask you.
Well, I'm a bridge addict, and that's a card game.
Okay.
And I work at a bridge club 2 days a week. I help the owner with the collections and so forth. I went through a period where I was going all over everywhere to play bridge from.
In competitions and.
Oh yeah, from California to anywhere. There was a bridge tournament, and my goal was to be a life master, which I am a life master now. But I never thought. I always say they're going to put it in my grave. She wanted to be a life master.
Were there other players in Brentwood that you, other teachers in
Do you
Brentwood
know,
that you
that's
played
funny
with?
that you'd ask that, and I think she is. Edith Romboli is still a principal.
I think she may have retired the last couple of years.
Well,
yes. Okay.
I
Skip.
taught with her at Pine Point.
Yeah.
Skip. She was the first one I ever played bridge with at a bridge club. I had always played at home and in college, and she got me started, and then I continued.
Because I know Bill and Polly Lane up at the high school were avid bridge players too, but I don't know if there was ever any connection. There was a group at the high school that played bridge all the time.
Well, now I played a bridge club in Huntington, and Wes Trutt plays there.
Yes, and Ken Moss when he was
Ken Moss,
living here.
right? When he comes down,
Mhm.
they play.
Okay.
They're the only people
All right.
that I.
But that's a sub-family. That's a subgroup within the large Brentwood family. That's wonderful. Is there anything that you would do differently if you had it all to do over again?
As far as teaching?
Yeah, as far as your experience in the district, as far as teaching.
I would say, and I know people do not agree with me, but I felt that the experience of different levels, teaching different levels of children, is an experience everybody should have at some time. I mean, you can't get into a grade and stay there 99 years and not move on. I felt that teaching second, fourth, third, fifth, and ending up in kindergarten, I had such experience at the other levels that I could see some of the problems that.
How many years would you suggest a person be asked to remain with a given grade and before they move on?
I would say 3.
3 years?
3 years.
And then get a taste of something else.
Right. I almost think if they made that a requirement for elementary teachers anyway, they would see so much more.
It gives you a breadth of vision that you don't have
that you don't
otherwise.
have if you stay in the same,
Yeah.
even though you see the other children. And,
Yes.
I would say
because
that
things happen at different ages, don't they?
that's right, and you don't see that at the same when you stay
Yes. At the same grade level
same
all the
grade
time.
level.
Is there one thing, and you may have answered this, Joan, but I'm going to ask you this way. Is there any part of your professional life that gave you the most pleasure?
I think when the children that I'd had in school, especially I remember when I was teaching 4th grade, when they came back to me from college to show me their marks or
Okay.
I was so happy for them because they were so proud of themselves. That was a very rewarding.
You know that you've had a part in somebody else's life.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they're here. They are in college and they're coming back.
Yes, that's so good. That's so wonderful.
They still think of you.
Yes. Yes.
And that.
It would be, I think, one of the greatest things in a country like ours is that everybody had an opportunity to do some teaching, not just teachers that get paid to teach, but if everybody teach somebody something, and we probably do it anyway, we just don't label it as such. But there is that kind of reward that comes. And the person who teaches always learns more anyway, right?
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure.
What's one of the most powerful books that you've ever read? Now, that's a tough question because you're a reader and you've read so many books and you have favorites. But is there a book that has affected you more than some others, let's say? I know your mind is rushing back over all the books and all the years, and perhaps it's impossible to answer the way I've posed it. Maybe if you just picked one book that you thought was an enjoyable read or a good book.
You know, I love so many books.
Yes, yes. What are you reading now?
Right now, I just finished the book by Thorndike.
Okay. Have you read others of his books, or is it just
some? Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Joni, what'd you miss most when you stopped teaching?
What I miss most?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I liked the best.
What'd you like?
I liked getting up in the morning and having coffee and reading the paper.
Yes.
I never read the paper till nighttime, and sometimes I was too tired to read it.
You're talking about once you retired.
When I retired.
And being able to read the paper in the morning.
The morning paper,
yes.
The morning Times and the morning paper. Oh, that was such a treat because when I sometimes didn't even read it. I was too tired at night.
Yes.
Because I always was an early person. I was finished early. And
is there anything about, when you think back over the years that you taught, is there any one thing besides what you've just mentioned now that you didn't miss? That you didn't miss at all? I didn't miss at all? Yeah. Is there something that you were happy that you didn't have to do again, or you didn't long for it? Bus duty. Okay.
Oh. That was just like the jailer.
Oh, gee. You've seen Brentwood change over a generation, over the 30 years that you have been here as a resident and as a taxpayer and as a professional person in the community. What do you see for the future of this school district and of this community? You've no doubt given that some thought. Where are we going?
Well, I hope that Brentwood is going to move ahead, as I think it should, in all areas. All curriculum areas. I read something in the paper the other day about Brentwood.
Over the years, Joan, Brentwood has always gotten hit very hard by the press. I mean, they would pick on this community for some reason, and even though Brentwood was one of the communities, one of the uniquely, I think, one of the nicest qualities that this community always offered was they actively recruited minority members to live here and become part of the workforce and part of the district and part of the teaching staff as well.
Oh, yes.
And of course, that has extended itself to families settling here and then inviting families, so that the minority population has grown to the point where it is now considered a minority school district for the most part. Mm-hmm. You've seen that change. We've all seen that change. Oh,
yes, yes.
But remarkably, perhaps, everybody gets along and everybody works together, and some miracles happen here. And anyone inside the school district has seen that. You've seen many of them yourselves. Mm-hmm. Things that have happened in kids' lives and in families' lives that you say, could this have happened anyplace else? I think that you probably have a lot of advice that you could give to young teachers just coming in. If there was one piece of advice that you could offer them, though, somebody who's just beginning to teach now, even though it's a different place from the way it was when you first came here, is there any advice that you think would be appropriate for you to offer? It sounds like you don't know what to say.
Well, I don't, other than get to know the parents,
Then
because
that's
that's the key.
That's it.
Now, granted, it's very difficult for them sometimes to get there, and they're working,
Yes.
but that is the key that unlocks the door. And you understand.
A vitally important key,
You
by the way.
understand much more about, I don't care what level it is,
Yes.
if you have had some contact and
Yes.
know what's going on at home,
Yes.
other than from the child's
Yes.
point
It
of view.
explains an awful lot.
Yeah.
Because the child at home is very often a very different child from the child that you see in your classroom.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
And then you need to put the two parts of that puzzle together.
Mm-hmm.
That's good advice. Is there anything that we've left out? Is there anything we haven't talked about that we should have mentioned today? Is there anything that you want someone who will eventually see this, for example, to know about you or to hear about that we haven't discussed?
No, other than I loved my job in Brentwood. I loved every day of it. I don't want to sound like Pollyanna, but I enjoyed.
Why not?
I enjoyed it, every day.
Yes.
If I had it to do all over again, I would come right back to Brentwood. I would not, even though, you see, Half Hollow Hills was like a fairyland. Oh, everything was beautiful and neat and clean. It was like a make-believe land. Now, Brentwood isn't. Brentwood is not a make-believe land.
No.
Brentwood is the real, real world. And that experience alone, I think, was very, very important.
Joan Young, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing so much of your life. I hope that my questions have taken us down the paths that we wanted to travel, and that you will agree when you watch this later that we went where you hoped we would go. But I have enjoyed your sharing this with me, and I thank you for giving us the time.
Oh, it has been a great pleasure to be here and to share with my
Thanks.
life,
Thanks a lot.
so to speak.